Today was day 3 of Sarah Boone's trial. So if you watched any of the pre-trial motions, you knew that they were going to be calling Sarah Boone, and you also knew that the defense had to call her first. Usually, they would go last in their own trial, but the judge had made a ruling that in order for them to introduce any abuse that Sarah endured, that she had to go first to set it up for them to be able to then pull it in and show evidence to the jury. Before we start breaking down some of the things that we learned today, I'm going to say something that I said in, I think, the unmasking of George Torres video, and that is clearly these were two people that individually had issues and were toxic to themselves, but then toxic to each other. Not a good situation. And today, even more so, proved that as they then were able to pull out photo evidence of many, many injuries that Sarah Boone had gotten from George. I actually wanted to make this video alive because I really wanted to see what everybody else was thinking and if anybody had a change of heart on some of the issues, because today was pretty deep with different thoughts and feelings. So definitely feel free to leave a comment saying how you felt. Did you believe everything? Did you not believe everything but still felt a certain way on certain issues? I would like to know. Tomorrow during my live, I'll probably be active on the comments, just because I do want to hear from other people. It's nice to be able to bounce off how people interpreted things and how I took things. So the day immediately started with that detective finishing up, the one who originally showed up to Sarah Boone's apartment to get information, see what was going on. She's the one that talked to Brian Boone while he was there, and then ultimately that is who Sarah met with for the interrogation and then her arrest. In the pretrial motion one of the days, the defense really had an issue with this specific detective. They felt like she didn't say everything that she was supposed to legally to Sarah, and that Sarah was led astray and lied to in a sense. But as we do know, they are allowed to lie some and at certain times. And she followed the rules. She didn't do anything wrong in this case. But James Owen, because of that, was not fond of her, and so was Sarah Boone. Not interested in her, not happy with her. And I think that showed because every time the camera panned to Sarah, she was writing a book. She had been writing for like a solid 10 minutes straight. And one of the things that really jumped out for me is Sarah had said that she was asked to go to the police department to get her phone because that specific detective said she was pregnant and not feeling well and asked if she could come to her. But on the stand, she said she never said that, and Sarah Boone made it up. True or not, I wish we knew 100% if there was any sort of truth or if that was just completely a falsehood on Sarah's part. But either way, they didn't like her. They weren't happy she was on the stand. And when they did cross, that was all brought up, but the other lawyer decided not to push the issue any further. The only other thing that I had noted for that time was the defense attorney kept asking her if she wanted to view evidence if she doesn't remember. But the detective never said, "I don't remember," and was struggling for anything. So a couple of times he would jump the gun and say, "Would this refresh your memory?" And then the state would object and say, "She never even said she needed a refresher. She's doing just fine." And on the second time, the detective started smiling because it was just very repetitive and she didn't need the help for it. And it just was jumping the gun too soon, and it ended up working out fine. But I think that they were trying to portray her as maybe having baby brain because she was pregnant and just trying to put off a certain narrative for her, and it didn't work. So then we jump into all the things that Sarah had to talk about and say. And one of the things that I mentioned yesterday was the fact that the state kept bringing up a baseball bat that was found nearby. And I said there was no proof of anything. They were just kind of talking about it. There was nothing that the state could do any further with that. But on the stand, Sarah then offered that she did use the baseball bat on George. So she said that she only used it to push George's hand back in the suitcase. But we know from the forensic pathologist that he had deep bruising on that hand. So it definitely doesn't line up with her saying, oh, I just pushed it back in. And also the state then brought up injuries that were found like on his back and other things. And I'm not sure if Sarah realized that he was talking about these other injuries because she basically said yeah and went along with it for a second. I don't know if any of you guys caught that, but I was like, oh, I don't know if she knows that she's giving that as a possible reason for those other injuries. It was kind of worded weirdly, so I'm not sure she realized where he was going with that. So then obviously she's talking about the relationship and a lot of the hardships, and then brings up about why she was still with him, and because she really, really loved him. And you do crazy things for love that sometimes people don't understand. And I just hope anybody in any tiny ways, even close to this relationship, I hope you know you shouldn't be in it. You can't change somebody. And it becomes so toxic and it gets bigger and bigger into horrific events. And I think that this whole entire case just proves that, because clearly neither party were innocent. They both did and said awful things to each other. And it was such a bad situation. And, you know, she brought up about leaving him several times. And if she would have, he would still be alive. Maybe they'd both be happier, maybe, you know, turning their lives around, hopefully. But we'll never know now. And it's unfortunate that this is how it played out. She did use the quote that I said yesterday is my most favorite quote that she says, and that is, I still love him to this day. If you didn't see my recap yesterday, her saying that, she said that in an interview 2 days after he died. I still love him till this day. And it's like, it was 2 days ago. So now it's a little bit more fitting because it has been many years, but it's just driven me crazy. So it will continue to drive me crazy. Towards the end of the day, the state ended up pulling out the suitcase and wanted Sarah to come and demonstrate zipping up the zipper, showing where it was when he was in the suitcase. And immediately her attorney, James Owen, jumped up and was not happy about the entire thing. I'm assuming he didn't know the state was going to do that, but he was definitely like frantic and very unhappy. And as things started, he actually turned the judge and started saying things, and the judge was like, do you have an objection? And he was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, come here. And they had to talk it out, and it was overruled. So it got to continue. But yeah, he was not happy at all. And I don't think Sarah was either, for obvious reasons. But when she did finally get to go back to her chair next to her attorneys, she did not seem happy. There was definitely some in-depth conversation going on with a couple of them. So I'm sure she was flustered. I'm sure there was one of, I don't know if she's an attorney or a paralegal, but one of the girls had come around to her and was whispering, probably just trying to calm her down, because she doesn't want to come across to the jury as anything bad and putting out negativity. So I'm sure they were just trying to get a handle on her and her feelings. So for me, I don't know if anything really changed my mind on what the situation calls for. I think she needs to be held accountable. But I also do feel bad looking at the photos and things that she had went through, because it's clear it was bad for each of them. And there's really no getting around that. She shouldn't have had to put up with any of the things that he did. and he shouldn't have had to put up with any of the things that she did. So we did kind of learn, though, that it sounds like a doctor is going to be coming out and testifying tomorrow. I had, on day one, said that the defense dropped the ball, and a lot of people were like, no, they did great. And I was like, but shouldn't they have asked Brian Boone more things? He said that she was abusive when she would drink. A lot of the responses that I got back were saying, no, they will when the defense calls him. Well, defense isn't calling him. Not according to what they said at the end of the day when the jury was out of the room. They have someone flying in. They hope to take her deposition and get ready and have her either start late tomorrow or be able to start first thing the next day. And James Owen wants to have everything wrapped up on Friday. So, unless they decide overnight to call him, he's not coming back. So I will stick with that. I think the state missed an opportunity. He would have been a great one to be a witness for them, to actually be able to say more about her drinking and how she acts when she's drinking. I guess the one other thing I will note is Sarah seemed to be pretty happy with whoever was sitting in the courtroom today. She kept turning around and talking and smiling, and I found it obnoxious because it's, this whole thing's going on for such a horrible reason, and it's just not the time. But I also understand that she probably hasn't seen anybody she knows in a very long time, so maybe she's happy to have someone there she recognizes that's on her side and loves her. Whoever that is, I have no idea who it was. They used to, for some courtrooms, they would show people sitting there and not just cutting off the jury. They would show the rest of the room. But they haven't turned the camera once. I've been curious to know if any of George's family has been there at all. But I guess we'll find out when the verdict is in. And depending on what's going on with the verdict, then we get to hear their victim impact statements. And with that, I hope you leave me comments. Let me know what you're thinking. Anything changed your mind? Just all the things I already said. Let me know. I'm very curious to know how other people felt about today.